music shows on CBS. And they were like, yeah, well, bring us a music show. And I was like, ding, 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 I've got one. So that was kind of the first like conversation. And I love musicians. I think they're so fun. And it's, listen, we're in the middle of an apocalypse. I don't want to bring us down, but like what is happening on Earth?
Seriously.
The AI robots are coming for us. We should just get with our families on Wednesday night after Big Brother and enjoy a nice family show before it all blows up, you know?
Listen, you had me at Big Brother lead-in. I mean, again, in another lifetime, no, I've stopped applying. I haven't applied in years, but I used to apply in another lifetime for Big Brother every year.
I love that show.
It's a brilliant show.
So brilliant. And like, it's just crazy to me because Julie Chen, in a way, has been a mentor for me when I was first starting out. She was so amazing to me. I used to appear on The Talk all the time, and she was just such a big supporter of me and has been a friend. And so we actually had her on E! News like just a couple weeks ago, and we're in the dressing room, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, you're my Julie Chen. And like, but first is the lead-in for my show. Like, that's the kind of stuff that blows your mind, and I feel unworthy, but I'm going with it.
Do you, you've interviewed so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Julie Chen, like, have you ever had this, like, your best interview? Like, or just something that sticks out as far as people you've interviewed?
I've done some really crazy stuff. Speaking of music, I think my favorite interview I ever did was with Ed Sheeran. So I have a long storied kind of history with Ed.
Yeah.
When I first started working at CBS, I had this digital show, which I was telling you about. It was called Fangirl. And I would run around Los Angeles and interview people who were just breaking out. Like, I didn't know anything about booking stars or really anything. So I would get the, not the Village Voice, but the LA Weekly. I would get the LA Weekly, and I would see in those back pages, like, who was playing the Whiskey A Go-Go. And I would be like, oh, it's, this band. And I would look them up, and then I would go on their website and be like, info@edsheeran.com. Like, I didn't know publicity. I just finished being a dancer. Like, I didn't know how the world worked. And so I remember for some reason this publicist at Atlantic Records was like, oh, do you want to interview Ed Sheeran? And I was like, I have no idea who this man is. And I look online, he's got this red hoodie, he's got this song A-Team. I'm like, it's kind of a cute song. I was like, sure. So he was playing the smallest nothing concert. And we're in the garbage backstage, and I had one little camera and one little light. I'm not even in the shot, and I'm interviewing him, and he turns to like his publicist guy at the time, his manager, and he's like, am I famous here yet? Because he was so big in the UK, but no one in America knew him. And the publicist is like, I'm working on it. And that day, he gave me like a little Lego, because his other song was called Lego House. He gave me a little Lego that I still have. So I was one of his first interviews, if not the first interview in the United States. And then from then on, as he blew up, he was so loyal to me. He'd come to me for every exclusive. He would let me backstage at things when no one else was covering it. He was very sweet. When I had my show on E! He did my E! Show, like first episode. And so a couple years ago, my very first favorite interview story, this is a long-winded story of me telling you, so we kept seeing each other, and like there was a time when he was a small artist, he would do red carpets, and then he got so big that he wouldn't do it, just sit down only. And so anyway, all these years later, I was working on The Insider, and he was doing a big tour, and I was like, I'll come to DC. Like, let me fly to DC. Can I go backstage with you? And he's like, okay. And so every time I saw Ed, I would bring him a present. So like one time I cross-stitched like Ed and me, like best friends. One time I made t-shirts that said best friends. One time I bought him like a pizza and a bottle of gin, which was like a song. Like every time I saw him, I brought something. This time I brought those like scooters, those things that everyone had for a minute. It was like a mini Segway where you stood on it and you could like just zip around, but it didn't have a handle. It was just your feet, and I think they got like burnt some airplanes and got taken off the market. Anyway, I brought two all the way to DC with me, and a bike helmet and wrist guards, because I was like, I will not break Ed Sheeran. And I was like, I got my present for you. And I give him the Segway, and he's like, holy hell. And his manager's like, you are not riding that. You're going to break Ed. I was like, no. And so we actually got on the Segway with the entire camera crew, both of us, and we rode around the entire arena, his bus, holding hands with our stupid rainbow hats on. And like, that is just something that you don't get to do with superstars of that level.
Yeah.
And I think that was like one of my coolest interviews ever. Just because he was like, we can do whatever you want. Like, where do you want to go? You want to go to catering? Like, it was just so chill. So I loved that.
I like that.
Sorry, that's such a long-winded story,
that's...
but that's like how it works. It's like no one's getting that exclusive. You don't get to interview Beyonce, and you have had to love and been interviewing her since she was 15 years old to get that.
That's like Madonna with like Kurt Loder, like when she really, or like, you know, Diane's, like she has her people. I mean, okay, it's Diane people, Sawyer, but yeah.
No, but it's people that you trust, and there's a reason those interviewers and interviewees do that, is because they really trust those people, and they know the things that they don't want to talk about, the things they do want to talk about, and so... yeah, that's pretty cool.
What about the opposite? Like, have you ever met some interview where you're just like either like so excited or you're a fan? Yes.
No, I actually wrote. I can talk about this because I wrote about it in the last Lady Gang book. I had an interview with an A-list actress that went so wrong. I had been interviewing them, and like I had asked a question, and it didn't come. It wasn't right, and a lot of times what someone says in an interview, then with all the online madness, it kind of like, it's a game of telephone. So you could be like, Keltie is a nice person, and then by the time 6 people write about it, it's like Keltie's a horrible, like it just gets, lost in translation.
Oh, yeah.
And so the headline that went out to the world had said something like, it was Julia Roberts, and the headline had said, Julia Roberts says she's done with rom-coms, which is not what she said to me. She said, essentially, like, at a certain age, it doesn't make sense for someone like, I was like, when are you doing another rom-com? She's like, at a certain age, it's like, are you going to believe I'm that naive in love and that dumb, to be in a rom-com? Because they're usually like young girls that are making bad choices. And so I was like, you know what? Touche. You're right. Vogue picked it up and they were like, Julia Roberts is done with rom-coms. So I saw her on a red carpet and she came up to me and she's like, Keltie, you put words in my mouth. And I was like, what? I have offended Queen Julia. I was mortified. And she was like, I never said I was done with rom-coms. And I was just like, this is happening. This is happening. This is happening. She was pissed. But we figured it out. And I was like, I didn't say that. Like, oh, and we figured it out. And I've seen her since and everything's cool. But that was mortifying for me because she's the biggest movie star in the world. And you're like, I didn't mean to. It wasn't my fault, but I've messed this up for her, and she's upset about it. And, like, the thought of going to sleep being like, you've upset America's sweetheart just, like, really killed me.
Listen, I mean, this podcast gets lots of headlines all over. It's the same thing. Listen, I've had people, publicists, go down the list, exactly that. And it's like, the quote is not wrong. It's never a wrong quote, right? But you're like, I am not People Magazine. I am not. I didn't make that headline.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It's a fine line.
It's a fine line, and I think your reputation. You have to just be impeccable with your reputation and your intent, and then anyone who's massive like that, they know the way this works.
Yeah.
So I never really found out if she was like just taking the piss, if she was like messing with me, because I'd seen her a zillion times that year. We've been in Cannes together, and anyway, but. Either way, Julia, I love you. I'm so sorry. And I do hope you make another rom-com. Well, she did, actually. She made the one with George Clooney last year.
I am ready to see a Julia Roberts rom-com
I'll see her be dumb in love until she's 97.
Yeah.
I don't care.
But I mean, also, she's then standing in front of you. So that's, I mean, listen, there are certain people, less now, but when I first started out, I would like lose sleep for like months. I'd be like, I'm done. I have to pack my bags and move to like God knows where.
Yeah.
But when she's Julia's one that you don't really want on your bad side.
No, not at all. At all. And like the people, I get nervous around weird people. Like